New segment here on the program, my top 10 coaching hot seat rankings. Whose seat is getting warm as we enter the 2018 regular season? I'll count you down from 10 to 1. And at number 10 on my list, we will go to the nation's capital. Jay Gruden of the Washington Redskins. So believe it or not, Gruden is the longest tenured coach under the Dan Snyder regime. Also tied for the 5th longest in the 86-year history of the franchise in general. Gruden is signed through the 2020 season after receiving an extension last year, but you really never know with this front office. So the Redskins really didn't help matters in my eyes. Bringing in Alex Smith, they didn't hurt matters, but they really didn't help things. I think the best way to put it is kind of a lateral shuffle, if you will, going from Kirk Cousins to Alex Smith. And the Redskins, they need somebody at wide receiver to step up this year to help out Jay Gruden. Whether it's Josh Dotson or Paul Richardson, I really don't care. Jamison Crowder, although he had his chance last year. The Redskins did have a solid draft. I will give them that. Daron Payne, Darius Geis at running back. I actually think the running back core for Washington is shaking out to be pretty good. Their offensive line is okay as well. So you see my hot seat meter. It will get hotter as we go throughout these rankings. Lukewarm for Jay Gruden right now. I wouldn't say this is a make or break season for the Redskins, particularly Jay Gruden. But I think the NFC East can give you some crazy results. And if it's a 4-win, 3-win season for Washington, which I don't expect, but could happen, Jay Gruden could be in trouble. All right, let's go to number 9 on the list. We'll go to Florida, and we've got Adam Gase, head coach of the Miami Dolphins. So, first of all, the Dolphins could be one of the worst teams in the NFL, number one. I'm not saying that will happen. It could. The Dolphins took some major risks, letting players go and then adding some questionable ones. Ndamukong Suh no longer there. Jarvis Landry no longer there. They traded for Daniel Kilgore to replace Mike Pouncey at center. Definitely a downgrade. They did sign Josh Sitton. I do like that signing. But Adam Gase's future really depends on how Ryan Tannehill bounces back from injury. Last season was an absolute train wreck with Jay Cutler and Matt Moore at the quarterback position. With Tannehill coming back, first of all, they got to get on the same page as we go throughout the offseason workouts and mandatory minicamp and OTAs, or OTAs already done, but training camp. And then you got the pressure on the wide receivers because Jarvis Landry is no longer there. Kenny Stills or Devontae Parker, one of the two are going to have to step up. I don't know which one will, but they do to save Adam Gase here. So going from 10-6 to 6-10, a playoff team to a punchline, probably not the right trend. So we'll see what happens. Stephen Ross has, notoriously been kind of patient, but Adam Gase had a lot of promise coming in and being the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, and I understand that Tannehill wasn't there last year, but, sometimes there's not a lot of forgiveness for NFL coaches out there. We'll say, good draft, Minka Fitzpatrick, Mike Gesicki, Jerome Baker, good players. We'll see how they do. All right, let's go to number 8. We got Mike McCarthy, head coach of the Green Bay Packers, and it seems like McCarthy has been on and off the hot seat for the past 7 seasons, really. And the Packers are shaking things up again with new DC Mike Pettin and Joe Philbin as the offensive coordinator reuniting with the Green Bay Packers. He was previously an assistant. And the Packers are coming off a year where they missed the postseason for the first time since 2008. And, of course, you can point to the Aaron Rodgers injury as the main reason why. But McCarthy has been around long enough to at least show some sort of fight. Even when you lose a top 2 quarterback, perhaps the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and the Packers had no fight. I remember watching the Ravens game when Baltimore traveled up to Lambeau, and the Ravens absolutely wiped the floor of the Packers. And so let's say, God forbid, another injury happens to Aaron Rodgers, and the Green Bay Packers just lay down, then, Mike McCarthy could be on the chopping block. So we'll see what happens there. Let's go to number 7 on the list. Todd Bowles, head coach of the Jets. So the Jets have been quite patient with Bowles as he endures this kind of rebuilding process, and I have the hot seat meter at toasty for now. He did sign a 2-year contract extension last December, which on the surface could indicate that the team is invested in him. As of now, Christopher Johnson wants to see how this whole Todd Bowles and GM Mike McGagnon duo could work out in New York. And the main storyline here is, of course, the quarterback position. Who wins the competition among Josh McCown, Teddy Bridgewater, and Sam Darnold, their first-round pick, I should say. And so you got McCown, who's the incumbent, clearly understands he's not the long-term solution, and also is willing to kind of play a mentor role. You've got Teddy Bridgewater, who's more stuck in this purgatory type of role here, where his ceiling is like, for the Jets, being a starter at the quarterback position or being traded. Like, that would be the floor. So there's that, and then there's Sam Darnold, who's raw but has good upside. I do like the offensive coordinator, Jeremy Bates. I have a lot of faith in him to help out that offense. I think the defense has some nice pieces. Leonard Williams had a really good season in 2017. They got a couple of young secondary players, first-round selection, second-round selection from 2017, respectively. So the Jets can take a step forward in 2018. The question is, how much patience will Christopher Johnson have? And we'll see what happens. Sounds like there's a fairly good amount for now. All right, let's go to number 6 on the list, and John Elway is staying patient with this guy, Vance Joseph, but that could change if the Broncos have another 5-11 campaign. Why is that? Well, John Elway was pretty forgiving with Vance Joseph last year because Trevor Siemian played quarterback, as did Brock Osweiler and all these other misfits at the position. So there was some forgiveness there. Now you have Case Keenum at the quarterback position, a guy who is capable, at least dating back to 2017, at playing the quarterback position. So if Case Keenum is there and you get another 5-11 campaign with a talented defense that now has, of course, Bradley Chubb on that front seven, Vance Joseph could be in trouble. And you're also talking about an offense that isn't elite by any imagination, but, I mean, you've got Royce Freeman, who I like a lot, especially from a fantasy football perspective. A couple of solid receivers in Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Good news that they kept them. So the offense is looking okay. The defense is one of the best in the league, top 10, obviously. And I think the AFC West will no doubt be a dogfight. I can't really decide who's the favorite. I did say earlier that the Chargers on paper should win the division, but you know what they say about being on paper, so there you go. Vance Joseph at number 6. Let's go to number 5, John Harbaugh of my Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens have made the playoffs just once the last 5 years. Of course, back in 2014 when they took down Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers at the big ketchup bottle, and then should have beat the Patriots and probably should have went to the Super Bowl, but I digress. Eventually, a head coaching situation can grow stale. And for John Harbaugh, it could be the end if the Ravens absolutely lay down in 2018. Why? Well, GM Ozzie Newsome moving on as well, so why not fire John Harbaugh too and start fresh? So the Ravens have taken steps to improve the offense. Michael Crabtree, John Brown, Willie Snead, Hayden Hurst, first round of the draft, I don't know why. Mark Andrews as well. Offensive line is shifting, but should be pretty good, actually. I'm hearing good stuff out of OTAs about that front 5. So I don't think John Harbaugh is going to get fired, but if the Ravens aren't very good in 2018, something to monitor. Harbaugh's at 5. Let's go to number 4. His name is Jason Garrett. Jerry Jones reiterated back in January that Garrett is not on the hot seat, but let's be real. If the Cowboys miss the playoffs in 2018, I think Garrett could be in trouble. And the Cowboys missed the playoffs last year for the 5th time in 7 years. Garrett was named the NFL's Coach of the Year after that 13-3 finish back in 2016. And can you believe we're talking about perhaps a hot seat now for this guy? I will say, 9-7 record last year without Zeke for a few games and injuries to Tyron Smith and Sean Lee, really not all that bad. And I'm kind of annoyed when people are saying we're overrating the Dallas Cowboys. Did you hear what I just said? They went 9-7 without the services of an elite linebacker at times, an elite left tackle, and a stud running back. And now they're all coming back and presumably healthy. why not think the Dallas Cowboys can make the playoffs? So Garrett faced a lot of pressure, you may recall, entering that 2014 campaign, right? After a string of 8-8 seasons, and then that pressure turned into a good year where DeMarco Murray balled out, Tony Romo was good, they made the playoffs. So maybe he can channel that 2014 form. All right, let's go to number 3 here. We've got Dirk Koetter of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Cut it out. I can already imagine the headlines when this guy is fired. So the good news is Koetter is already a longer tenured coach than the last 2 Buccaneers head coaches. He will tie the 3 seasons of Raheem Morris for the most of any head coach in the post-John Gruden era. So how about that? There you go, Dirk. Good for you, buddy. So the NFC South is absolutely brutal in that it's difficult from that perspective, and the Bucs could be facing, honestly, guys, 6 losses right off the bat. They could be swept by the Falcons, Panthers, and Saints because that's how good those 3 teams are. The Buccaneers are talented, but I think patience could be wearing thin on Dirk Koetter. I am not a fan of this guy as a head coach, and one of the main reasons why I have him here, and I have him in my boiling hot category, he's not getting along with Jameis Winston. Who do you think the Buccaneers are going to side with? Their franchise quarterback or this guy? Let's be real. Koetter's at number 3. Let's go to number 2 on the list. Speaking of people who I have no idea why are still employed as a head coach, Marvin Lewis of the Cincinnati Bengals. I truly want to know why he is still there. He is the 2nd longest tenured coach in the NFL and has made the playoffs 7 times in 15 seasons. And he has 0 wins to show for it. So the Bengals also, will say, showed a willingness to spend this offseason, bringing in Preston Brown, good linebacker coming on over from Buffalo. Also, good tackle, Cordy Glenn, coming over from the Bills. But it's not like these 2 players are totally going to revamp the Cincinnati Bengals. I think there's a very real chance this team finishes dead last in the AFC North. Yes, behind the Cleveland Browns. So Marvin Lewis is at number 2, but honestly, there could be just the fact that Marvin will always be a head coach. Like, he will be 95 and still the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Bengals will still be without a playoff win with this guy. So honestly, that's what we're staring at. With that, let's get to number 1 here, and his name is Hue Jackson. Obviously, right? GM John Dorsey has done everything in his power to piece together a winning team, at least a competitive team. Tyrod Taylor, Baker Mayfield at quarterback, Carlos Hyde, you got Jarvis Landry, Josh Gordon, E.J. Gaines in that secondary, who I like a lot. If Hue Jackson is short of 7 wins this season, I think he's in major trouble because I don't think Dorsey or the front office in general will be as forgiving. I actually think the Browns could win 7 8 games this year just because of the talent they have on that team. Now, it all has to come together. It all has to mesh, and I understand that. And sometimes these players don't mesh when you have a lot of free agency additions and trades and all that stuff. But we're talking about a coach who's just 1-31 in his Browns coaching career. And the dog pound is ready for results. They want them in 2018. Baker Mayfield coming to town at the number 1 overall selection. He brings a lot of energy, of course, coming on over, winning the Heisman with the Sooners. So Hue Jackson checks in at number 1. Let's summarize the list. Here you go. 5 up to 1 here. You got Hue Jackson, you got Marvin Lewis, you got Dirk Koetter, Jason Garrett, John Harbaugh. Those are the 5 candidates that could be in some serious trouble if their seasons don't go to plan. Vance Joseph at 6, Todd Bowles at 7, Mike McCarthy at 8, Adam Gase at number 9, and then Jay Gruden there at number 10. Whose seat is the hottest? Let me know in this reaction poll. Jason Garrett, Hue Jackson, Marvin Lewis perhaps, Dirk Koetter. Give me a like, laughing face, heart, or wow face, respectively. I'll be tracking what you guys react with, and of course, what you guys say in the comments section as always. You have been watching the Cam Rogers Show. I am Cam Rogers. I will see you back here Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. If you missed any of the video, keep it right here because we're looping it for you. See you Wednesday.